Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and welcome to Mattsplaining. On today's episode, I have an expert on who I'm excited to speak with. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert in.
Hey, it's Chad Riden, America's favorite comedian of all time. Thank you. I don't know if I am an expert, but I'm building an Earthship off the grid out here in Taos, New Mexico.
Fantastic. I feel like, luckily for you, I am an expert in building Earthships. And a lot of people think that the first Earthship was the one that Noah built, but there were Earthships well before that, yard boats, that sort of thing that predated even Noah. Just there's always been a drive in the human capacity to create something that is sustainable, yes, but also like is eye-catching and is capable of putting you forward and into a position where you're going to be able to save people in your community if you need it to, where people are going to want to flock to you. I'm not saying that you're going to create a cult, okay? This is not
Oh, there's a cult. It's for sure a cult.
Okay, fantastic. Good. So I don't want to scare people away by bringing up the cult aspect immediately, but it's kind of an integral part because once you get people that are so dedicated to this process, they want to commune with the earth. They want to I'm not saying that they're trying to harness the weather difficulties that could potentially happen so that they can use these earth ships to transcend into safety or to tarnish or vanquish, so to speak, their enemies in the surrounding community.
Enemies is also a very big part of the plan. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Because like ultimately you have state legislators, you have community boards, you have HOAs, what have you, depending upon where you've chosen to build, that are going to step in and say like that's against the rules and everything like that. And then we can't open up another Starbucks if you have this Earthship in the area. They're like, oh, the property values or whatever it would be. And so just getting a couple of those town halls washed away, or an earthquake or a volcano opening up randomly, natural disaster. And but you are secured because you have your Earthship. And then also just on the practical side of things, you also have just this kind of drive and desire to see how far you can go as an individual, as a community, in making something that is sustainable, but also is like supporting. I think that a lot of people, when they start thinking about like going off the grid or anything like that, the idea of there's going to be a lot of work all the time, but trying to get yourself into a position with the community or with your environment where there is free time, there is time for creative work, there is time to not just make it I don't know what yours is made out of, but an Adobe house, it's not just a pink Adobe or brown Adobe or anything like that, but it would be you get some graffiti artists in and they are able to make it look really cool and spiffy. They put your icon, if you have an icon. I don't know if you guys have decided on your icon for your community or anything yet.
I have so many logos.
Okay, yeah. So they put your logo on the side, and so people can see it from the highway or what have you. And just giving that extra layer of personalization where it's like, oh, okay, people might want to stop by and like understand what it is. And maybe that's how one of the ways your community grows. And basically putting yourself in a position where if you do want to have time to write, if you want to have time to go do shows, if you want to go and put on a concert, you have that ability because you've created that infrastructure. It's not just constant work, 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 work. And that I think a lot of people you kind of associate with this idea of going off the grid. And so I think that's just just a beautiful thing because we have this outdated idea that if we don't have the conveniences of every day, such as like a microwave or so like running water, even going down to those base levels, that you're going to have to be filling up your water buckets, and then you're going to have to use those water buckets to help insulate your oven that you're using, like the sun's rays to heat everything up. I believe that's how those ovens work, those sun ovens, because
Yeah.
you put the water around it, and then it becomes like I don't know if it's a steam. I'm not really sure about how
Yeah.
that, but like you don't have to. You don't, with a little bit of planning, with the right placement, with the right set of people, you don't have to worry about those things all the time. You can really have a lot of time and freedom to enjoy the scenery, enjoy the people, and enjoy your thoughts. Now, based on what you've heard so far, about how much of that would you say was accurate?
I mean, 99% accurate. You're just about nailing it. All the free time out here, there is no building codes where I'm at. I've chosen to
Okay.
build someplace where they burn down Starbucks, and
Okay.
so it's kind of you're pretty close. All the free time that Earthshippers have, they spend drinking, in my experience, because
Okay.
they need cans and bottles to build their houses from. Sun ovens are basically a bunch of mirrors and a box, and you're cooking food, and yeah, but you're pretty close with a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
Oh, fantastic. I
yeah.
did not expect that. What
You're almost right.
I love it when that happens. I just fall into mistakenly being right. What got you interested in it?
Well, I got divorced in 2011, and I was sitting in the basement of that giant empty house, and I was like, "What the hell do I want?" Because it wasn't this, and I was like, "What? I only want a basement. Like every apartment I've had that was a basement. Coolest is cool in the summer? It's warm in the winter. Like in the dorm, I remember the basement apartments were the best. Like I was like, man, I just want to build a hobbit house. Somebody's done this, somebody. And so I Googled, how do you build a hobbit house? And I found Earthship Biotexture in Taos, New Mexico. And it's basically, they build with three purpose materials, like
Mhm.
old tires and cans and bottles and old wood. But it's like, it's solar heated. It's using solar gain and thermal mass to heat and cool the house without fossil fuels. It's powered by solar and wind. They do water harvesting off the roof into a cistern, and it's contained sewage treatment. So you're treating your own sewage water with that, and producing your own food in the greenhouse. So you're completely off the grid, using upcycled materials and a lot of labor, and that really appealed to me a lot. And so I'm a comedian. I know I haven't proved it today, but I'm a comedian, and I set up a tour from Nashville to Las Vegas and back down Interstate 40, just so I could spend a day in Taos and see if it was real or just some Instagram bullshit. And I couldn't stop talking about this place, and it took me a while, but I'm an empty nester now. And when COVID hit and I couldn't really tour, I just thought now's the time to get the hell out of Nashville and go do what I want to do, and bought property out here and moved out here and got to work.
That's fantastic. And what was, when you first moved out, what was like the first thing that you felt you had to do, or that you wanted to do with it, if that makes sense?
Well, I had to clean up a bunch of hippie debris. The lady who owned the property before me was one of these Rainbow Coalition people, and it was just hippie trash everywhere, broken glass and nails and garbage just everywhere. She was a hoarder, and so I had to clean up all that. That took me a good year and a half. But then I'm just making connections and learning how to build out here, how to live out here, helping other people with their builds, and just asking like why they made the decisions they made with materials or design, and what they would do different, what their successes and failures were. And that made me change my plans about a dozen times, and I'm very grateful for it, because I've got a better plan for what I'm doing, because I'm very in touch with the community, and I've learned what has worked and not worked for other people.
Absolutely. What's one of the things that you believed when you first started, or at least one of the things that you believed when you first started that you ultimately had to change?
I thought I needed like a two-bedroom global model Earthship. Like it's all ego. Like you've seen McMansions all over the country, and it's ego making people build these giant houses with rooms they've never ever been in,
Right.
or spent time in. And I've realized that I need very, very little. I need a full kitchen, and I need at least a queen size bed, and that's about it, dude.
Right. I mean, that maybe a place to sit, but other than that, I think that that's the main things you need, definitely. And I don't know if this is going to be a weird analogy to make, but when you were talking about it, it made me think of the game Animal Crossing. If you've ever
Yeah,
played Animal Crossing, it feels like you're doing like a real, especially with the cleanup initially
yeah,
of like you've taken over, you're kind of taken over this community in this area, and you have to like clean it up and get it ready to go and to be created in the image of what you want it to do. Is
yeah,
that it would,
totally.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
wild.
I played Animal Crossing on the Switch. My daughter got me into it, and I normally don't like little resource gathering games, but that is very close to what I'm doing out here. Yeah, you're taking what you've got and you're taking inventory of the local resources, and then you're just kind of building something in harmony with nature, not fighting against it, and using those materials directly around you. So instead of having cinder blocks shipped in from God knows where and timber brought in from who cares, like I'm trying to use the dirt like right on my property to build using ancient techniques but modern architecture, and it's pretty amazing how efficient these homes are. Like if you build a 15-inch thick dirt wall and plaster over it, like that's so much better than having whatever asbestos alternative they've packaged for you to die from 20 years from now.
Absolutely, yeah, and I feel like I'm originally from Phoenix, and I know that I'm pretty familiar with Southwest dirt, if that makes sense to you. And I would imagine that out in New Mexico, there's a there's a very specific kind of feel and like texture to the earth out there that I feel like would really lend itself to, especially with the right practices, to building effectively. Is that would you say like the dirt is specifically good for it, or it can
Yeah,
be
it
done
is.
and
And you can use honestly any kind of dirt anywhere. You just have to
okay,
add more or less sand to it. But yeah, the dirt at my place is pretty perfect for adobe. And
okay,
so yeah, I have almost unlimited resources as far as building with dirt goes. And it's just like an Earthship uses tires and sledgehammers to contain the dirt, but it's just pounded earth. And they've like the Pueblo here, they say they've been here since the beginning of time, and I'm not here to argue with them, but it's like these pueblos out in New Mexico are the longest, most continuously inhabited structures in North America, and if they've lasted for thousands of years for those people, like I'm ready to follow them into the future.
absolutely, yeah, and they're so from my brief visits out there, I remember just being kind of in shock of like America really doesn't have, or at least before this, I thought that America didn't really have these like structures that like in Europe they have like, oh, this building has been built for thousands of few hundred years. This is like the first dome we ever created that was
Yeah.
sustainable. And then you find these things that don't get covered, that don't get talked about. And it's like, oh my God, this is such an efficient and like smart way of doing things, and these have been around for so long. That is
Yeah.
it was mind-blowing to me as a kid, and still to this day I feel.
Yeah, totally. And like when I was leaving Nashville, we did a big farewell show. And my friend made fun of me. He's like, Chad's going out to the desert to dig a hole and cover himself up with garbage. And it gets a
Hmm.
big laugh, but it's like, yeah, like construction in the United States is very disposable. Like these
Right.
houses that they build are rotten or destroyed. Like find me a roof that was built in the last 50 years that doesn't need to be replaced every 20 years. It's ridiculous how kind of disposable our entire country is. And I'm building something that's going to outlast me for sure. And it's using as little technology as possible. It's all manual stuff. So like I'll be opening and closing vents, and but it heats and cools itself, and it'll last forever and take care of me instead of me taking care of it. You mentioned maintenance. That is the one thing. Like if you do the right like lime finish on an adobe wall, like that will last forever. And like yeah, the water pump may wear out, the electronic stuff in the house, the outlets, the light bulbs may blow, but the structure itself is going to last a pretty long time.
Absolutely. And you can replace those things. You can, as
Totally.
time progresses, kind of upgrade those things if you need to, if they're something better comes along. That's absolutely fantastic. If people wanted to learn more about you or were interested in getting into this, where would you recommend that they go?
My website is chadriden.com, chadriden.com. There's a build page there where you can see what I'm doing and come out here and volunteer. I organize Volunteers Day events out here where we go to somebody in the community's place and we help them with their sustainable building. Earthship biotexture is out here. I would go to the website Earthship. I think it's .com. If you Google Earthship or if you go on YouTube, there's thousands of videos of these things. They're beautiful works of art. The bottle walls, like it's weirdos out here doing this, and they're very creative. So come on through New Mexico and check some stuff out. Hey, and I'll put you to work.
Absolutely. Chad, I can't thank you enough. This has been so insightful, and I hope people learned a lot. Yeah, so thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Don't be an indentured servant. Get away from the banks. Build yourself and be self-sufficient.
Absolutely. My name is Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining. Before we go today, I want to thank Ryan Lawson, my dear friend, for making the theme music for Mattsplaining. Ryan can be reached at beatblenderstudios@gmail.com or at Beat Blender Studios on Instagram and TikTok.